better as a result of social media presence.
If it doesn't do those three things, then it's on the chopping block.
It's a return on investment discussion.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Daily Dealer Live. I'm your host, Sam Dark, and back with me today again is Yuli D.
What's up, guys?
Yuli, welcome back.
Thank you.
It's good to have you back on this Wednesday in September. And for those joining our live stream, as always, we're live across all CDG social media platforms. Post those comments. We'll bring them into today's show. Truly, your comments, your feedback, your interaction help make today's show even eliter or more elite. It'll be awesome. And what do we have coming up for you, our Daily Dealer Live audience? Well, on this Wednesday, the car dealership guy himself, Yossi, made a post and he said, you know what? More car dealers would sell EVs if only EVs were profitable. Well, we've got one dealer from the Midwest that says, not so fast. Profitable it is. We'll have him on in just a moment. Plus, Toma joins on AI-Hesitancy. And then Growden, yes, there's more to that, on dealer waste. But before we get into that, let's dive into today's biggest headlines. First up on this Wednesday, Volkswagen is going all in on, get it, AI intelligence, artificial intelligence. They're pledging $1.2 billion by 2030 to bake AI into just about every corner of its business. Get ready for this. Buckle up. No pun intended. The automaker already runs more than 1,200 AI applications with hundreds more in the pipeline. And now it's doubling down. Think AI-powered engineering tools that let designers run virtual tests and a factory cloud linking more than 40 plants where new AI processes get plugged directly into production. Board member Hauk Stars summed it up by saying AI will be the backbone of how they want to design, build, and sell cars going forward. The bet comes as VW faces big pressure to boost margins and speed up time to market. If the strategy works, AI could be the lever that makes the company leaner, faster, and tougher to compete with. And maybe there's a good AI fuel economy bot. Too soon? Too soon? Probably too soon. All right. Next up today, get this. Car buyers came rushing in August trying to close deals before tariffs hit. And federal EV tax credits disappear at the end of September. We're seeing a big rush in our auto group to scoop up those EVs with credits available. And on paper, the buying process looks better. CDK Global's ease of purchase score in August went up. It ticked up to 89% that's a huge improvement from just a couple months ago. But beneath the surface, inventory was thinning out. Only 43% of buyers were able to drive a car straight off the lot. That's an astounding stat. 43% of buyers drove off the lot. 29% had to buy something in transit or in production. That's astounding. With fewer cars available on dealer lots, two of the biggest parts of the car buying experience got worse in August: test drives and vehicle delivery. For dealers, that's a trade-off. Urgency, easier negotiations, and better credit availability are helping clear out old inventory now, but the experience is under strain, and how that plays out once incentives vanish and new model pricing kicks in will be the real test. Astounding. 43% drove off the lot and 30% was, we'll see you later when that vehicle actually hits. Interesting, right?
Crazy to think about.
Next up today, buy-seller tracker alert. Remember the CDG buy-sell tracker. Go there for all your updates and daily news on M&A, mergers and acquisitions. So, hey, I love it. We got it. Yossi promised it last episode, and it's real. Wait, you got to hear that again. Let's do it. If it's possible. Who knows? Oh, that makes me happy. I love it. We have our jingle. Lithia Motors just planted its flag deeper in South Florida, buying Palm Beach Acura along with a Hyundai Genesis store in West Palm Beach from Napleton Auto Group. They're a Chicagoland-based auto group that I'm familiar with. Lithia CEO Brian DeBoer says the move builds density for Lithia's omni-channel model while adding luxury and import brands that fit neatly into the group's long-term growth playbook. And South Florida isn't just any market. It's one of the wealthiest in the country. And that means these rooftops are high-margin assets in a region where clustering brands can create serious cost and marketing advantages. Much luck to Lithia as they continue to gobble up stores, including in Florida, a state I love. I love the sunshine there. So Next up today is a headline that we've been hearing a lot of lately. Ford is back in the headlines with another massive recall, this time nearly, get this, 1.5 million vehicles across its 2015 to 2019 lineup, from Super Duty pickups to Mustangs and Lincoln SUVs. The issue this time stems from rear view cameras, which we've seen that before this year, that can distort, flip, or go completely blank. Uh-oh. Federal regulators say Ford already knows of 18 accidents tied to the faulty cameras, though no injuries have been reported, and dealers will replace the cameras free of charge. So that's service business for Ford dealers. But the bigger picture is tough to ignore. Ford has now topped 8 million recalled vehicles this year, and we're not done with the year yet. More than 100 separate actions. This is averaging more than, get this, one recall in every 2 days. Wow.
That's crazy.
That is crazy. And that's a wrap on today's industry news. So, Yuli, just a quick look back. We're on episode 51, 52, somewhere in that ballpark.
53.
53. Today's episode 53. We broke the 50. I recently spoke at an Experian gig, and they asked a good question I hadn't thought about. I want your answer. They said, Sam, what's your favorite episode? Because I always talk about how much I learned just being on here. And I was like,
yeah,
that's a great question. So here's my 3 top favorites. Rohrman. I loved Ryan Rohrman coming on, sharing his tech stack, not because he shared what they do, but because he's so blasted knowledgeable on how that tech stack's put together and forward thinking on it. I really appreciated from Infiniti and Nissan, Vinay and Tiago coming on and speaking very candidly about their challenge and their struggle to overcome some of the adversity facing Nissan and Infiniti and their path forward. I really like Dennis Gingrich coming on. Dennis and Tully doing the variable fixed ops. And then a shocker to me, we had a VC guest last week, Steve Greenfield, that also kind of broke down some of the myths in all things AI. Really liked his episode. What's your favorite, Yuli?
All right, not offending any of my friends and personal friends that have been on the show, right? But I'd have to agree. So my number one is probably Rohrman, because we always talk about, the relentless execution of the basics, and there's nuance, right? We all do the same thing, but a little different. And this is a 20 group. It's an evolving thing. But to see just that deep dive into a massive area in our space, that's like, there's so much more that we need to dig into there. It was just really eye-opening.
Yeah. In fact, I don't want to tease it too much, but we're working on 2 roundtables. One is automotive AI cage match. And the idea is let's bring AI experts from around the industry together and just help us figure out what the heck is going on. The other thing we're working on is finance manager roundtable. That could be coming up here over the next couple of weeks.
A masterclass, if you will.
Yes. And then an OEM. Hey, my OEM's the best OEM in all of automotive. So 3 of those. If you have any interest in joining us on the AI automotive cage match, reach out to myself. You can DM me. You can also reach out to Michelle. Or if you want to join the finance director roundtable potentially here in the next couple of weeks, reach out as well. We'd love to have you on board. And speaking of that, Yuli, we get a ton of requests from auto dealers across the nation to join the show. We've got one place to go for that, cdgguest.com, to fill out the intake. You'll meet Michelle. Speaking of Michelle, she is our scheduler extraordinaire. She'll hear your story, hear your viewpoint, and invite you to come on. We look forward to hearing your perspectives. And then let's talk NADA. Car Dealership Guy is back with our 2nd annual NADA party happening in Las Vegas on Thursday, February 5th. That is the hottest ticket at NADA 2026. We'll have a special guest and top automotive personalities to be considered for a formal invite. Just hit the link in the show notes, request to join, and fill out the questionnaire. We can't accommodate everybody, but it is one of the coolest parties. Having been last year, what astounded me about the crowd at CDG is you've got really forward-thinking folks in all of automotive. I would argue, you look at the different parties out there, you look at, I don't even want to throw shade at anybody else, but you think about all the other gatherings that go on at NADA. I defy anyone to find the future of automotive better than what sits at the CDG party.
Agreed.
And so I rotated around that party and just talked to people and tried to understand their viewpoints. I learned a ton in that one moment. Dan C. says online, thanks guys for keeping up with the ongoing challenges related to the Ford recall list. We're committed to bringing that to you And by the way, we love Ford, so no shade
For
on
sure.
Ford. We're
No.
just trying to figure out what's going on, and we're trying to report the news as it happens and as we see it. So don't stop quoting, don't stop posting to social media throughout today's show. And with that, let's go straight into today's first guest. Up first today, Eric Miller, director at Morrie's Automotive Group. Eric, welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So, Eric, you're here because you answered a post. But before we go into your post, let's ask with our banner question, how's biz? And as part of your answer, just share a little bit about yourself and the auto group where you're located.
Sure. I'm the director of pre-owned inventory for Morrie's Automotive. Generally speaking, Minneapolis market, although has expanded into Wisconsin, Illinois, and Michigan. As a luxury campus, we have a couple different brands, Cadillac being kind of the anchor. And since we're talking about EVs, Cadillac has done pretty well with EVs. I've been in the industry 33 years, or this is my 33rd year. And I've worn kind of every hat. So my experience is broad, and I bring that to the table.
Okay. So you read Yossi's post, which basically said, hey, more dealers would sell EV. Oh, wait, how's business at Morrie's? First of all, I blew past that.
Business is good, stable, and some segments growing. It's has some tough parts. Acquiring inventory has been really challenging this whole year. But generally speaking, whatever we fear is going to happen hasn't happened yet. We're shoring it up and performing well.
Yeah.
Sam, that's another one in the good column, FYI. I know you have your tracker over there. So
yeah, we do have the tracker. So thank you for that. All right. So you answered the post. Yossi said, hey, you know what? More dealers would do business in EVs if EVs were profitable, the illusion being that they're not. But you said, wait, they are profitable. What are most dealers missing today, Eric, about profitability in the EV space that causes them to not see that opportunity? You're the number one Cadillac EV dealer in the North Central region west of the lake. You've sold 60 plus new and used a couple times this year so far. What do most dealers miss about EVs, Eric?
I think in general, there's the perception that the public isn't ready, or that somebody is forcing the EV movement. But it is kind of an internal monologue that derails looking at it as an opportunity. If you think something is not going to sell, I think that self-perpetuates.
It doesn't sell, right? Yeah.
As an industry, have a pretty green sales staff. I mean, I don't think that my store, my campus, my dealer group, or even our region are alone in that. I mean, the statistics bear it out. Many of them have not sold automobiles pre-COVID. And there's quite a bit of disconnect when it comes to how do we become an information source to our guests as opposed to just being order takers. That dialogue occurred during COVID. We knew this was going to happen, right? We knew this was not the way it was going to be forever. We lost a lot of institutional knowledge, a lot of people who knew what they were doing, had experience, selling cars. And there's the opportunity, right? If we can go back to the basics and execute, learn what our clients' needs are. So doing a good needs analysis would be, kind of the start of that. And not force somebody into what we think or what we believe, but truly listen to them and give them options. Within the store, every brand is going to be different. There's going to be different demographics. There's going to be different markets. But in general, if they are coming into the showroom curious about EVs or open to the idea, and believe me, some aren't, right? But if they're open to the idea, they expect the person that they bump into, and often it is, right? It's random, to be knowledgeable, be able to answer their questions. There's a big disconnect when you walk into a showroom that you're unfamiliar with. And so the side note is the Cadillac is, nearly 80% new to the brand of people coming into the showroom, or at least buying in the showroom.
Yeah.
So they don't have people that they know, like, and trust. They are bumping into somebody random and asking questions, but they're prepared. They know a lot of those answers. And when they're not met with the same knowledge and care and empathy, they disconnect and walk away. So
part of what you're saying is part of the equation is better education, better belief on the sales floor,
100%.
better education for the consumer, and a sales team that not only is ready to entertain those questions, but has a belief level that that it's a good option for the consumer. So the clock is counting down. Federal rebates end the end of this month. That's about 20 days away. What's your prediction that happens on the backside of that? Does demand fall off and the market collapse in some dramatic fashion? Or is there some sort of a new norm that is just short of today's current production, or somewhere in between?
Somewhere in between is a safe bet, right? I think, we're not going to see a collapse, at least long term. I believe that we're going to see a downturn as people kind of wait out what the new norm looks like. You're going to see manufacturers scramble to kind of fill the void. Again, General Motors, which is our anchor, at least in my purview, has done that before. There was a time where Cadillac kind of fell off the $7,500 credit eligibility as they moved production around, and in that time stepped up with what they called the Ultium Promise, which was a $7,500 rebate. Will they do something like that temporarily, or even kind of within a short-term strategy? Don't know for sure. They'll need to, right? The public is kind of expecting that this gets met. But this isn't new. This isn't even about EVs necessarily. I mean, this has happened over and over cyclically for the 30 years I've been in the business. This has happened before. So whether it is fuel economy or whether it is some other regulatory pressure that is moving the manufacturers to do what they do or react to what they do, this isn't new. So the manufacturers are pretty well equipped to handle it.
Well, let's go into a little bit of a lightning round and just kind of understand your operation and how it is at the end of the day profitable. So let's talk first up, buying those used EVs. So you're in charge of that acquisition, I would assume, as part of your role. What's your best source for buying used EVs? What's your strategy on finding and appraising? And are there any landmines in there in used car acquisition in EVs that you're avoiding?
Absolutely. The landmine for, so far in 2025 has been vehicles that are just slightly over the cutoff point for the federal EV tax credit.
But wait, that proves. Yeah, but that proves that the federal tax credit is buoying up the market in a way that's unhealthy. Yeah.
Well, I don't know about unhealthy, but it's certainly, people aren't dumb. If they can buy a car and land them net at 21, that was 25, versus find the same car with 10,000 fewer miles and it's 26. They'll step around it to find the car that does get them to 25, which means it's 21. So this is just opportunity. I wouldn't even say that people are motivated by that. But they're not dumb either. So when it goes away, that segment, $25,000, $26,000, $27,000, I think heats up again. But for now, that has been the landmine that you'd want to avoid as a buyer. That car will turn slowly.
So
and 30 plus don't make a difference.
Have you altered your buying strategy for 60 and 90 days to accommodate the elimination of the rebates? And what are you doing for that? Are you picking up those vehicles that previously didn't qualify at a higher clip, or what's your new strategy once the rebates disappear?
We have done a good job in the middle, meaning it's not vehicles that qualify for the federal tax credit on the used car basis, meaning 25 and under. We've done a good job where, say, GM company cars, if they already reflect the very best stack of incentives, including the federal tax credit, the used car market has to have that baked in, right? If I can have a $75,000 Cadillac Lyriq, I'll use that example because that's kind of what we do. If I can walk into a showroom and buy one that was a courtesy vehicle, and I get Costco and I get Conquest and I am eligible for the $7,500, and I can stack all that and be $15,000 off, all of a sudden the real transaction price of that car is 55. But not everybody will qualify for all those incentives. So if I can pick up a, GM company car with 2, 3, 8,000 miles on it, offer it as certified pre-owned, and come in at 48, I now have a compelling story to tell the people who don't qualify, which, believe me, a lot of our customers are over the $300,000 income cap.
Sure.
That's a place that that we want to live and can compete. Some people are going to lease EVs because that $7,500 impact really squeezes well into a 2 or 3 year period to lower payments. But again, that's not for everybody. So it's kind of finding products that complement each other without just undercutting new car sales.
So what does average recon look like in your group on an EV?
Well, on EVs, it's a little bit different. We can count on a little bit lower reconditioning costs. It's not as likely that they're going to need brakes, for an example. We're not doing an oil change as they come in. So tires, they're going to chew through them. We kind of set aside for that. But usually when we're acquiring vehicles, we know what the tire measurements were when we bought them. Missing EV SE chargers. Photographs of the vehicles that really don't show in the compartments where those EV SE chargers may be can be a gotcha. They can be several $100s. We did from January until probably last month a lot of bolts, Chevrolet bolts that were buyback.
Oh, interesting.
They got new batteries. They had 12-month, 12,000 mile repurchase, but those vehicles had been sitting in GM holding yards for 2 and 3 years.
Wow.
So we counted on, we have to put tires on these. We have to put a 12-volt battery. We need to do wiper blades. There's going to be other things that, just degradation of time and sitting. So even if they measured 7/32 tread depth, they showed up, they'd have date codes of 2018 or we needed to replace the tires. So we did dozens of them, like near 100.
Wow.
This is the topic of conversation. Those vehicles had a higher margin for us after reconditioning than any other used vehicle type so far in 2025.
Interesting. And what do you attribute that to? Was it your ability to buy them right from the correct source? Was it your discipline in cost of recon? Was it strong resale value? Like where is the gain there relative to your ICE?
Well, I mean, that's an interesting question. I think the answer kind of lies in, if I'm out shopping for a $12,000 to $15,000 vehicle for my needs for a college kid and whatever it is, I mean, you're looking at Toyota Corollas that are basic in equipment with 110,000 miles that are rusty and kind of worn out. And that's what we've always expected. That segment has gotten very expensive, right? The affordable segment has gone away. So a Chevrolet Bolt at that moment, forget the EV part, right? We're talking about cars that had 20, 30, 40,000 miles because they paused in time for 2 or 3 years. They have a warranty on their battery that was 8 years and 100,000 from the day it got its new battery, that have a lot of clocks reset during our reconditioning process, right? They have brand new tires. They've got, everything is good to go, and have a 1 year warranty from General Motors. And we could retail them net of the tax credit for $8,000 to $15,000. And it was a segment that nobody else really exploited in our market. So I'll call it luck, right? But it was identifying that segment.
Yeah. You found that opportunity, though, and that's part of what makes automotive grow.
We found and defined the opportunity. The difficulty when it started in January was, at any given day that you went into GM, fleet pool and started looking, there'd be 1,200 bolts. So I'd sit down, my staff famously knows this. Sunday morning, I would get up earlier than my family, go through that 1,000, build a spreadsheet, determine what they needed and what their price points were, identify 40 and, buy 10. And we would just do that, every week.
So part of your success is identifying where those are and acquiring them from unique and interesting sources. Outside of GM and the special factory stuff, are there any other sources for those EVs, particular auctions, or is it service drive, where you're having success acquiring those at a level where you can turn a profit?
Yes. And the answer is yes. All of those, right? So we bought them from Mannheim and OVE. We bought them from ACV. We bought them from the Lane. We do have, buying center that buys them like a Carvana, acquiring them from the public just
Yeah.
in general broadly. There were a lot of people, and there are a lot of people who own EVs that are tech savvy, that are, all about speed and convenience. So they are open to just selling their vehicle and then making their next move. Even if there is a sales tax component to that decision, they want to be in control of that process.
There's a
and
trade.
we were buying plenty of EVs, and the answer is because nobody else really wanted them or was scared of them, right?
Or
They
understood them. Yeah, they didn't
or
understand
all
them,
the
right?
above. They
Yeah.
kind of thought it was catching a falling knife. I mean, Tesla's a really good example.
Ooh,
And
that's a good line.
my theory was turn them quick,
Yeah.
get them in, price them below market. And obviously we have the tools as an industry to define what that looks like, and get off of them fast because there were more opportunities. It wasn't the same as going out and buying, the mythical 3-year-old Toyota RAV4 with low miles that everybody wants and we have to compete against to buy.
Yeah.
I spent the morning at auction before getting here, and we're $3,000 and $4,000 over MMR for the segments in which dealers like me compete against.
Yeah.
So finding an area where the competition really hasn't focused actually gave us a leg up and increased our profit potentials. And as long as we were smart about it, we turned them quicker and for more money.
Yeah.
So do you think I want to go into F&I and again, kind of a speed lightning round piece, because we don't want to run out of time. We've got so many questions for you. Do you think part of your success has to do with the state you're in, where the state from a political environment is a little forward thinking on EVs there? Some manufacturers were only distributing EVs only in Minnesota, right? Whereas some other states are farther behind. And so maybe you're on that leading edge, and maybe you're sharing with our audience something that will be a tool, a tip, a trick over the next 30, 60, 90 days to capitalize on this market. How much do you think geography plays into your success?
I think it's an easy harbinger. I think it's easy to look at that and say,
it's different here, right?
Yeah. I think the proof is a little bit in the pudding, right? We are not the only, for example, Cadillac dealership in Minnesota. So why are we outperforming all the other Cadillac dealerships that are in the same market, selling the same vehicles?
You've got a strategy.
I believe the answer is strategy, training, education, ease of transaction. We're meeting customers where they want to be. Now, we are a one price strategy dealer group. Our store is there as well. And I think that does play a big role. I mean, a very big role in kind of derailing or letting people bring their guard down and dive into the actual needs analysis and listen to us rather than having their defenses up.
It's not about negotiating a price. It's about understanding the value of the car, which is part of your value proposition. All right, let's walk us through. Let's just walk through a few other departments before we lose you here, because we are getting a ton of comments out there. For example, Lauren Klein says you can't have one or two EV specialists; they all have to be well versed in it.
That's right.
And there's dealers have to invest in EV, and their people will in their people to push it. And then there's a few comments out there that just say, EVs are dead, which I got to tell you, Eric, I kind of resonate with what you're saying. I think, we have been predicting for a long time the crash in the used vehicle market. It never materialized, even coming into COVID, coming through COVID, coming out of COVID. And I just feel, why do I feel like, as it relates to EVs, everybody's sick and tired of hearing of them. I certainly am as well, that the true market demand isn't off a cliff, but it's somewhere short of, and things will normalize as rebates disappear, but it's not going to be complete death. It'll be finding those opportunities. All right. So take us into finance, F&I. What F&I products are available in your world on the EV side? And what are you averaging per EV sold?
Sure. Well, every product is available, but it changes what it looks like, right? So tire and wheel works very well. Really everything does. The
maintenance doesn't. You can't do oil changes.
Prepaid maintenance, is a challenge because there is less maintenance, but the importance of having that vehicle visit the dealership again in a year, in 2 years, is maybe more critical, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So how do
10
you tie
years
that
ago,
customer back to your service department, if not for an oil change?
yeah, looking at the product, looking at pricing, and just keep hitting the accelerator pedal until something works that is compelling to bring them back in.
Yeah.
And I do think that there is, again, building value. If you talk about why they need to come back and get a tire rotation, for an example, right? Because EVs are going to need them as well as any other vehicle, and let a factory trained technician get underneath and take a look while it's still under warranty, so that if something is developing, we can take care of it. Is still as compelling an argument for an EV as it is for a gas or a diesel.
Eric, what branded service contract are you selling in the finance department on your EV products? In our world, we use CNA. They do an incredible job. United Car Care is also another provider that we use in our world on used EVs. What does Morrie's use?
We have our own company, right? So,
okay.
That's our own risk pool. And believe me, it's a challenge. I don't think that that's something that, is as defined or developed as it needs to be. We also, with Cadillac, have, General Motors, GMPP. And it is a challenge. Believe me, we're not going to see the penetration at the same dollars that we saw. But the area of opportunity for the rest of the products and for the rest of the financial picture is there. But believe me, when you talk about PVRs and you talk about financial opportunities for your F&I department, there's a pain point there. There's friction for them, especially if they're gauged on the penetration of some of these products. It is a challenge. You just have to look at it as an operator and say, I have to develop gross dollars that need to filter to the bottom line. And where is that happening?
So before we let you go, one last area to talk about, right? You couldn't sell EVs into the marketplace if you didn't have a good lead generation program in place. So you're buying these vehicles right, you're servicing them right, you're offering F&I products that make sense in your world. What is your best strategy as it relates to marketing these vehicles? Is there a particular digital lead provider that you're using? Is there a particular approach to get the word out about Morrie's and the products that are available through you?
And the answer is it works no differently. So all the same lead providers that work well for us in new vehicles, in pre-owned vehicles, work exactly the same, whether it's an EV. I mean, look, these are the same cars. The propulsion system is different. So if we can build, the old adage, build value until it's greater than price, if it works for people, people will buy it. And this has been the case forever. Dealers feel they can't sell something profitably, whatever it is, a diesel, a model that isn't as hot. You've defined for yourself that you can't. The last piece that I'll mention is, when I answered that, we're talking about profitability at the top line, but there's a whole lot more to it. And manufacturers' proficiency programs play a really big role. I mean, this is a chess game. So determining, can I sell this type of vehicle because the manufacturer finds it to be important and maybe earn some hard to get product? And some of it isn't black and white and one-to-one and really trackable, but manufacturers are our partners. And so we need to kind of, listen to their drumbeat and get on board and maximize our internal pay plan, right? And that's some of those proficiency programs.
So the interesting point here, Eric, about what you're talking about there is manufacturers overproduced, you could argue, some of the EVs in anticipation of federal regulation and government programs, which pushed it and created rebates and was making requirements. So manufacturers put incentives and did asks, inventory for trades and all that, so that they didn't have a ton of this stuff sitting around. What will be fascinating, we want you back on the show in a year to see whether it's proved out or not. As those federal rebates pop away, what is the real market demand for that inventory? And yes, you found great opportunity between the lines of federal rebates and demand and people that don't understand that market. You've capitalized. But when all that's gone, where will be the new opportunity? And as someone in a state that's very forward thinking in the EV space, and you've outpunted the market clearly with your sales leading in multiple areas, props to you, props to the entire Morrie organization for your results, your accomplishments. Hopefully everyone has learned a few things. I have. Thank you, including how to find those opportunities. So Eric Miller, director at Morrie's Auto Group, We appreciate you being on the show and sharing your perspectives on all things EV. And thanks for posting, Eric. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
Thanks for having me.
The clock is ticking, Yuli. The clock is ticking. We've got just 20 some odd days left, and EV rebate support will be gone. And then it will be fascinating to see what that market looks like. I do think the demand will be greater than some think, and it won't be as much as others.
Well, he said it. We're going to lose federal EV support, but there's going to be some type of support out there. It's going to come from the manufacturer if they want to get rid of those cars. So.
Yeah, but manufacturer support only comes as a consequence of overproduction, and a lot of manufacturers in advance of this rebate cutoff have stopped production. Period. So it'll be interesting to see where that middle is. There may not be as much OEM support as we think. All right, let's talk dealer pay. Dealer Pay, designed to increase productivity and customer retention. Dealer Pay is a dealer-specific payments acceptance solution with over 25 years experience as trusted payments partner for dealerships across the United States. Visit dealer-pay.com. Again, that's dealer-pay.com to learn more, or you can click the QR code in the corner to learn more about Dealer Pay and the services that they offer. We've got a fantastic industry spotlight episode out there featuring Dealer Pay and talking about surcharging. So if you want to learn more about that approach to it, props to Dealer Pay for supporting the content on today's show. Thank you. All right, let's jump to our next guest. And actually, this is a fascinating conversation when we think about things that are up and coming, things that have been, and where you find opportunity between those lines. Welcome to the show, CEO of Toma, Monique Pamecha. Oh no, I ruined the name. Monik. Will you tell me how to pronounce your last name, Monik? I apologize.
Yeah, it's Pamecha.
Pamecha.
And I think Yossi, it happened to Yossi as well last time when we were speaking.
So thank goodness.
Flashback.
Thank goodness. Well, Monik, will you right out the gate just tell us how biz is from your perspective, and then tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so I am the founder and CEO of Toma, and we build AI agents for our dealerships. We automate communication over voice and text, that is inbound and outbound. So that's what we do. How is biz? Biz has been really, really busy. That's what biz has been, I think, since our last appearance on the show. Actually, this was in June sometime, I think. I think I have like 3 updates, really big ones. One is, we've gotten so much adoption from, the smallest groups to the largest public groups. And it's been a little surprising because I initially thought, like when we were even building the product and talking to our customers, that they probably want to like pilot it and they want to like slowly roll it out. But it seems like there seems to be a trend in place where dealers are going for it. They want to get all the stores at once. And it seems like there's this growing confidence in the technology itself. And I think maybe it's because there's a cultural shift, right? Like if you call the pharmacy, you call the hospital, like you're getting AI agents everywhere. So there's this growing level of comfort, with the consumers by default, like everybody expects that to be the case. So I think that that's a source of confidence. Then the second thing is, which I think is a little surprising as well. We built the product thinking that people, it's for people who don't want to have anything to do with AI, for example, right? I don't want to touch it. I don't want to let it do its thing. It turns out there is this class of employees we're seeing within the dealership who are really savvy. So, I'm sure there are people who don't want to touch it and change it, but then there are these employees who are like, what did your support, like when I requested this change, they did something. Can you give me access to make that change myself? And then we actually built this feature internally is like, savvy user, and you turn it on for them. And then they can basically see the full product, so they can make changes to these AI agents, how they talk, what they sound like. And they're like building these new use cases that we didn't think were possible because they have the knowledge, of the workflow. So it is very interesting to see that, and we've seen more and more of that over time. So I think that was a little surprising, and we've started building around that. And it's natural that people who are doing that, their agents and their dealerships actually just perform better. So maybe I think the last time the conversation was like, oh, is AI going to take jobs? like we're definitely seeing this creation of a new type of a job within the
Yeah.
dealership. It's like this one person that everybody goes to talk about, hey, this new thing came out, like, do you think we should use it? And they'll be like, here, give it to me. And then they like make some changes and it kind of works.
So tell us from your perspective. It's interesting. Automotive, I think, has been a very slow adopter of certain technology, and AI is one of those. We've interviewed a bunch of dealers on this show, and some dealers have leaned into it in BDC and other areas. Others have said, look, we don't fully understand it yet. We don't fully trust it yet. And so we're still very much doing a lot of those operations manually. You're saying you're seeing a difference, that tide has shifted. What do you attribute that change to? And why is that happening right now when automotive was slow to adopt initially?
I think, I don't know. I never felt that way because the reason we were actually in healthcare and banking when we started the company, we pivoted.
Healthcare might be slower. Yeah.
Yeah, but we pivoted to auto because
Yeah.
we obviously thought dealers were more, for lack of a better word, risk taking. I think because they want the reward,
Okay.
right? Um,
Okay.
I think it continues to be the case, but as I mentioned, the first point was still the cultural aspect that it's just happening all around you, so you cannot ignore it. And the
Okay.
second thing is like you're seeing it work. Like if you talk to 5 people, there are probably 2 people who say, "Oh, this changed my life,"
Yeah.
or in some way or the
So,
other.
so let me ask you another question. You specialize in the voice AI, which I think is fascinating, right? Everybody that's ever called up an 800 number, like an airline,
Mhm.
got stuck on the voice AI.
Yeah.
The older version is awful, and
Mm.
you can't press 0 as much and as often as you need to get out of it. The new is pretty slick and cool, but dealers tell us that, hey, voice is cool, it's novel, but how does it practically integrate into the dealer operation? So if you want to use it in service for scheduling or sales to help answer, like, walk us through the practical integration of that tool into dealer operations.
Okay. So we'll pick a more complex use case. Let's say somebody wants to book a recall, right?
Okay.
Where now you need to check if the part is available, right? So there
Yeah.
are like a couple steps. So first is there are certain places where that information is within your system, right? Maybe it's in your inventory, maybe it's in separate software. Let's say it's A, B, and C. So when
Yeah.
you call, the first thing is you need to understand what the context is, why the customer is calling. You get all that information. Um, Next thing is, okay, let me figure out what I need to know from my side to answer that question correctly, right? Which is, oh, if you're calling for a recall, let me check if the part is available. And then you can hit that integration or, wherever that is, get that information, then move the conversation to next step. So it's basically a step-by-step process, much similar to how humans operate, which is let me find where that information is to move to the next step. I grab that information, I let the customer know, and the customer chooses, what do I do with that? And then you make a decision. So it's this ping pong, right? But I think it all involves like getting more and more context over time so that you can fulfill whatever the customer's desire is.
Yeah.
And every conversation is that, like even our conversation right now, like I'm just looking it up in my brain and my experiences to pull that, right? So it's this stream where I'm throwing things in and you're pulling things out, like that's
Yeah.
basically what it is.
Yeah. So for the dealers that looked at voice AI, let's say 6 months ago or a year ago, and just said, hey, it's not quite there yet, what's happened over the past 90 days, let's say, or 6 months that has helped this to become better, where I could actually put this in front of my customers and feel confident that they're going to have a good experience?
Yeah, I think two things. One is it has started sounding more natural.
Mm.
So it feels very realistic, and I think there is a term. I think it was called anthropomorphizing or something like that, where you look at a robot.
Anthropomorphizing. I don't even
Thank
know if
you.
that's right, but that's a cool word. I like it.
But what that word is that a robot, it's a robot, but it looks and feels like a human, right? So you
Mm.
cannot help but engage with it like a human does because it's
Yeah.
just your natural tendency. So that's what's happening with the voice piece, where it's like sounding so real, it's behaving, it's like having these like filler words, and it's like stopping, laughing, emotion, all of that stuff. Second thing is it's actually becoming smarter, or let's say less dumb, where it gets you, like when you
Mm.
said something like 2 times, it will recognize that, and I see that you said it twice, and then it
Mm.
understand that it needs to address something with urgency or not. So I think there's this overall model improvements that are just helping increase conversion rates, for example, right?
Yeah.
Because the stuff that was 50% maybe 6 months ago is now at 65, 70, 80%, depending on the use case.
Yeah.
So if you have a dealer that's listening to the show right now and they're like, hey, I like the idea of this. And I think part of the strategy here has got to be, so many of our employees have never had a really great phone conversation with anyone, right? Like, we're so used to texting nowadays. We're so used to emailing and messaging and Snapchatting and being on all the social media platforms. Some folks just aren't as comfortable on the phone. If I said, hey, I want to enhance my operations by having this voice AI capability, where would you recommend a dealer that's never done anything with voice AI? Where would they start? Where's the best first use case for a technology like this?
Got it. Just a caveat, like we also do like automation over text as well. So the same conversation that happens over voice, you can chat. Like there are certain dealers that we have where they have a number where you can just text that number and talk to them about booking appointments, getting status updates, all of that in one place. But let's say if you were, you just want to use voice AI on the service side, that's helpful. So the two use cases, inbound and outbound. Pretty much any use case that you have is inbound on the parts counter. On, that's a simple thing. If you have a wholesale parts operation, you could put the AI there to get orders and to make sure that they're checking status on some order or they're putting a new order in. You can grab all of that. On the service side, obviously for getting booking appointments, pricing, hours, all those things. On the sales side, after hours, where people are calling in to check inventory, like post 8 p.m. or on the weekends, like, do you have it on the lot? If you wanted to put in like financing, like, what is my payment going to look like roughly? Or if you wanted to use car acquisition, that you can do vehicle evaluations on the call itself. So, I mean, I just threw like 5-6 use cases over right now, but there are a lot of places, like, because these agents, the AI does not distinguish between use cases. It sees the whole thing as one task, right? Because you could ask 5 things on the same call and it will do it for you. So that's the format, really.
Monik, quick question for you. So we've talked a lot about, the customer experience and what the customer is going to see or feel when they're interacting with the AI, but how do you solve for what I think is the biggest hurdle with adoption in the dealership, like getting the adoption from the employees in the individual departments?
How do you get employees bought off? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think the way our onboarding works, for example, is that we have a process of teaching the agent where the employees are actually involved in evaluating the output of it. So they see everything. We don't try to hide what's happening. We go up front and we're like, here, call it 20 times, or you see the first 20 calls that happen and you slowly roll it out. So you don't start taking like all of the calls at once. You'll start with like, let's take 10% and let's assess that, right? So the employees see it working.
When you're saying see it working, is this like a separate portal that you've created that the users are logging into?
They get email updates if they want that, or they can log into the dashboard, listen to every single call if they want. They can see what happened, and they even get flagged on like, this AI call pissed the customer off. So we flag it to them, they see it, and then they usually have a suggestion. They're like, instead of doing this, how about you do that? So I think the way they're bought in is because it is a process that involves them. They are making the changes to the agent, right? And I think that is the future where I think that savvy employee thing that I was mentioning, like you'll see more of them, and they'll be the experts of training this thing. So they come in and they're like, I know what to do. Let's change this. Let's make it this way. So I think,
Monik, if I'm a dealer listening to this show, hearing what you're saying, and I look across my showroom floor and there's nobody that's kind of that expert, is there a path to learning more as an employee in the deal? Because I agree with you, like a subject matter expert that can help guide others through it is super important. What advice would you give to that person that like wants to learn more, become that subject matter expert, gain value by becoming that expert? What advice would you give them?
I wish there was something I could say where I take this course or go to university or do that.
Chat GPT. Yeah.
But
I play with it.
Exactly. The best thing is like, how did your best salesman, like, where did they learn how to be good at sales? They
sell. Yeah.
Right.
Just trying.
Right. So anytime you work with tools that actually let you do things, see the feedback of it, and like, have that virtuous loop, then you can learn something. Otherwise, if it's like, a brick and you just look at it and it's good and bad and that's it, that's the end.
All right. Unfortunately, we're almost out of time. We got to keep going. But I understand you had a couple questions for us as it relates to voice AI, like a test almost. We got a couple minutes left. What you got?
Let's do rapid fire. So I'm going to ask you. So
Let's
we've
do it.
done like thousands of calls, and I have answers to these based on data. But I love to see what you think. Okay, so we have AI phone calls all the time. The question is, and from the perspective of conversions, okay, do you think a male voice converts more or a female voice?
Female.
That's correct. It is female, and by a huge margin. Like,
For
and
sure.
I don't know what it is, but it works.
Yeah.
The second thing is, do you think a formal tone works more or a casual tone works more for converting?
Casual. Female,
yeah.
casual, British accent.
We have some Australian ones, but casual, actually, it doesn't make that much of a difference.
Okay.
So that was a little surprising. I thought casual too. The third one is, do you think having background noise actually helps convert customers more, or if it's just, like silent and, just not normal?
Background noise, because
Yeah,
you
little
want
background noise.
authenticity.
Mhm.
You want reality.
Yeah.
And I think it's like 60-40. Yeah. So there's like a slight, increase in, like, if it's background noise, people actually engage more.
Mhm.
This is a tricky one. So do you think telling, like, when you open the call and you straight say like, hey, you're talking to an AI, or, you're just not saying that and you just engage with the customer as is, right? Without
I
mentioning
think
which one
engage
comes
as
first.
is.
I appreciate when they say it's AI, so you know exactly what you're doing. And I like that better.
Yeah, I think for transparency, but I think for conversion, I think it's better the customer doesn't know. I think you probably have pushback if you divulge.
Well, surprising answer is people don't care. It's about the same.
Yeah, interesting.
So I don't know what, and then I think the final one would be: do you think AI calls end up being longer than regular calls, or shorter than if humans were taking the call?
Shorter.
Yeah, for me, it would absolutely be shorter because I get
Yeah.
frustrated with, like, nothing's
That's when
more
you start smashing
aggravating.
zero.
Yeah, nothing's more aggravating than calling an airline and just getting lunacy, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think AI agents are much faster, more efficient. Here's what I want one day. I want my own AI agent that will make all the calls, do all the things, and
It's coming.
represent me. Like,
It's
I don't
coming.
want to call the airline. I
But
don't
like
want to.
Google does that, by the way. I think on Google Maps, certain business like restaurants, it can like
Really?
it can make so many times we're getting AI calls right now. It's mind blowing. There are certain apps that do that, but like there's a small.
I want in on that. I want in on that because
It's coming.
Because one day I don't want to ever have to pick up a phone or type out a text or type out an email. I just want to say what I need and then let my agent go out and work for me. That's the power of AI at some point. How long, Monik, as we wrap today? Last question. How long before that happens?
It is happening right now.
Yeah. The speed of AI evolution, adoption, and integration, voice and otherwise, is astounding. So, Monik, Pamecha, I got so close. Thank you for being on the show today and sharing your perspectives. Absolutely fascinating, this industry. Thank you for being on, CEO of Toma.
Monik. All right, thank you guys.
That's what I want. I just need an AI agent that'll go out and just do it all for me.
Do your things for you, make the calls.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yes.
Yeah, it's coming.
And then think about, so this is what's interesting. People are so worried about losing jobs. There are elements of all of our jobs that just do not inspire us, do not give us energy, do not excite us. And so much of it has to do with those things that are just mundane.
Yeah.
Let me, instead of me calling to make that airline reservation, I want to call the car dealership guy, Yossi, and have a great conversation with him, or call the CEO of my company, Aaron, and have a great conversation with him. I don't want to sit on hold for an airline or a hotel or a restaurant or anything else. That's the key. So if anybody has that tool, I want you on this show because we'd love to hear you. But until then, next up, we turn to Mathew Grody, consultant at the Change Optimist. Welcome to the show, Grody. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Hey, welcome.
By the way, before we ask you how's biz, we must acknowledge your 9 Inch Nails hat, because
awesome hat.
I was just listening to, now we all have to go back to the 1990s for this, but I was on a bike ride recently, 9 Inch Nails, Head Like a Hole, classic song, very dark, but an incredible piece of musical talent. Did you go to the concert?
I did, so they're on tour right now. I wouldn't miss it. So
Yeah.
they were in Toronto just 2 weeks ago. It was spectacular. Probably the best
Yeah.
best 9 Inch Nails concert I've ever seen.
Wait,
Was this
okay,
last-
but you're not saying best concert ever. You're leaving it within 9 Inch Nails.
Correct. I'm
history.
leaving that.
Okay.
So the best concert ever for me probably also included 9 Inch Nails, and that was Lollapalooza '91.
Oh,
was
nice.
Lollapalooza.
Nice.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna go down. We'll end up down a complete. We'll go down that rabbit hole later because I agree with you. Concerts are awesome, and I would love to see 9 Inch Nails at some point someday. So, but before we go into that, how's biz? And as part of that, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do in the world.
Right. What do I do? I mean, business is good. I cover a lot of bases, so I'm a little all over the place. But I was talking to someone recently, and they were kind of going on and on and on about why is the automotive industry so difficult and backwards. And I stopped them halfway through their spiel, and I just said, dude, this is why you have a job. Like, this is, I'm like, if for as long as you want to work in this industry, you're going to be able to work because there's definitely work to do. There are questions to answer. There's technology solutions that are needed. There's improvements in marketing. So I would stop complaining and just go do the work.
Embrace it.
So I'm fascinated right out the bat with something in your bio here, and I don't know if you're okay. Like, you worked with Google Auto. You were the Google Auto lead in Canada. Tell us what that means and what was Google doing in automotive? And I'm just curious what some of the lessons we can learn from that as you think about Amazon and some of these other entities that are large that are out there trying to go to the market.
I mean, so Google is, there are many heads at Google. Google's like the Hydra. It's like Hydra in the Marvel universe. Cut off one head to grow back. So I worked, I got hired as an account executive in the automotive ad sales team. I worked initially with Ford as kind of a dedicated account rep for a period of time. Over a number of years, I also worked with Honda and Kia. And then I came back from a meeting with Ford dealers one time, and I basically came back to the office and I said, I think we're screwing up how we manage the dealer business. I didn't use the word screwing. I used a different word. And they were like, great, put a business plan together and tell us why we should address it differently. And thankfully, there was already a bit of a model built in the US to do this, but I built a team within the team that just worked with dealers to try and focus on auto retail as a different segment and get out in the field, get to know senior leaders at all of the largest auto groups in Canada, work with, some of the other auto retail players like the Canadian equivalents of Carvana, so Canada Drives, Clutch, etc., and try and, as I described it, deliver the gospel according to Google to car dealers. So that was, and that got me out into the wild a lot, and that got me a lot of profile, and it meant I got to go to a lot of presentations and drop a lot of F-bombs and build a bit of a reputation as the foul-mouthed Googler out in the wild, and let me see a lot of what was going on across the country.
So unfortunately, we've got just a short amount of time left, and I want to be super efficient. So you consult and work with dealer groups in a whole bunch of different areas. Marketing is one of your areas of focus. What are a couple of the biggest mistakes dealers make today in the marketing space, and how could they quickly fix that in September of 2025 to become more efficient, generate more revenue, become more profitable?
Man, we don't have enough time. It's a long list. I mean, I do, when I think about Google, this is also true in Meta and other, it's that all of those platforms are now so data specific. It sounds redundant to say that, but the two things that almost everyone gets wrong or doesn't do to the extent that they should is that their conversions are broken. So they're not recording their leads properly, or they're not recording the phone calls properly. Or
how do you fix that?
That's a longer question, a longer answer, but I'll give it to you. And or based on their budget, regardless of what market they're in, they're optimizing to too many conversions. So because your budget can only be split so many ways. How do you fix it? So you either need a vendor that's super cooperative that knows how to implement and build that tracking capabilities. If you don't have that, or you don't trust them for whatever reason, then you're going to need like a qualified third party to kind of come in and do that work. There's a bunch of consultancies that just focus on, say, Google Analytics optimization and conversion tracking. And especially when it comes down to all of the widgets, like for every iframe and button that opens in a different window that pulls data from a different service, that gets trickier to actually track as a conversion if you want to optimize your media spend to it. But you've got to get that right, because both Google and Meta are both conversion and value obsessed. So if you don't have that foundation set up properly, nothing else is going to work, and you're just going to be spending bad money after bad. And I see that all over the place. I get random calls all the time where a dealer will call me and say, like, this account will not spend, and I'm like, well, that shouldn't be the objective. Like like, shouldn't we be spending to some sort of goal, some sort of conversion point? And then I'll dig into the account, they'll give me access to the account, and I'll see, oh, all of your conversion setup is fudged. So that's number one. And then the rest is I kind of knew you'd ask this question, that Google changes things too quickly. And I think even if you're working with a certified vendor and your certified OEM program, there's a good chance that they don't know or haven't been taught or aren't on top of the latest and greatest changes that Google and Meta and and down the line, Pinterest, TikTok, etc.
Give us an example of a recent change, and we're going to extend just a few minutes here, but give us an example of a recent change Google made that makes it difficult to stay up to date on that world.
The biggest one, well, and it cuts both ways, because they will change something, make fanfare about it, and then the broader recommendation is don't do it yet, right? So,
until everybody figures it out, right?
Right. So one is so they made a lot of noise earlier this year about AI Max, and arguably that product in Google Ads it's too new. It's not great for branded OEM vendors, like for OEM dealers, because it'll start bidding all over the place, and you won't have control of the keywords. And so without putting some other controls in place, that can be very problematic. The biggest one, again, it goes back to conversions, is Google had a way to import clicks a few years ago, and then they changed that technology and they rebranded and re-released that product called Enhanced Conversions. And Enhanced Conversions was built to be a tool to allow Google to see into traffic coming from iOS and Safari, because iOS and Safari are shutting down other providers, other third-party tracking, other third-party cookies. So Enhanced Conversions is how Google models its data to try and look at the click stream to understand what are those visitors doing. And in Canada and the US, that's like half the traffic is coming from iOS and Safari. So if that's not enabled, then your conversion setup is probably messed up, and you're probably spending money in ways you probably shouldn't.
So if you're a single point dealer sitting at your store right now, thinking about your marketing plan, how do you stay on top of all of this? Like, that's not easy. How do I know this? Is there a blog? Is there a forum? I mean, obviously hang out here, because this is a 20 group and you'll learn here, but how do I stay on top of those changes so I don't miss efficiency with dollar spend in digital ads?
I mean, I have a kind of an unconventional answer that I give now when I talk about that in a dealer meeting or a dealer setting, and that's that there is now this growing population of Google Ads experts on LinkedIn, and I have a list of them, and I say just go follow these people, because
how do we find that list?
I can share it with you after. I'll share it with you after. And some of it is some of my former Google colleagues who are doing a bang up job and staying on top of this stuff, and then talking about it because it's their business. They've pivoted and
product awareness.
So it's kind of like, if you and your agency can't call Google directly, like calling 5 people who used to work at Google might be the next best thing.
Okay. Next question, because we want to get as much info as we can that dealers can use today when they think about their digital ad spend, their marketing campaign. What's one metric that most dealers overrate, and what's one that we should look at instead? So what's the most overrated, and what's something we should look at?
I don't know. There is a lot of noise about VDP views. Like there's just so much noise about VDP views, and I get that that's a useful metric, but it frustrates me when again I see that somebody is spending money optimizing to that metric, and usually that's an indication to me that whoever the ad provider wasn't able to drive leads and phone calls, and so they picked a more lower hanging fruit metric, and so that I find frustrating in the wild and kind of push against.
Why is VDP views so misleading? Because it's just traffic without an action, right?
Correct. I mean, it's useful, and if there's no other data, like I think there was a time not so long ago, call it 5 or 6 years ago, where Google and Meta wanted more data to optimize campaigns. And so if that was the conversion you could get, it was a reasonable signal. It was a reasonable starting point. But both tools, both ad platforms are now better able, using AI in the background, to make a determination to get you a phone call, get you a lead form fill without having to use kind of those vanity metrics in between anymore. But to answer your other question, it's simple. Is then and anytime I mention this, people are like, "What's a conversion?" But it's the cost per. Like it's then your. Sure. I don't like to go to return on ad spend. I think return on ad spend is very valuable if you were a consumer e-commerce or regular retail, not auto retail client, where you're selling T-shirts or electronics or books online, then that's a lot easier to calculate. But where we have this disconnected process, the return on ad spend is not as useful. Usually it's just, let's focus on what conversions we're getting. Let's focus on what the cost per conversion is.
So Lauren Klein is coming in saying abandonment rate.
Yes. I mean, it depends on how you're, again, with the way that Google now allows you to build your own events and customize your own events. That can be what is abandonment. But there's a funny conversation around, like, say, bounce rate, because, and I used to use the example that in the universe of Google, they want the highest possible. Google wants the highest possible bounce rate on Google.com because it meant you found the thing you want and you went there, right? So depending on how your website is built, bounce can mean, or abandonment can mean, different things. If you're talking abandonment in the notion of a funnel, or in the notion of like a process flow, then yes, you can use like cart ads or digital retail checkout as a pretty strong signal. But again, for my money, I would log that more as a secondary conversion and focus on the end goal. Focus on the funnel.
All right. Yeah. So again, in that lightning round vein, last question up. Actually, two last questions. What's the most valuable first-party signal the dealer should activate now? And what is a first-party signal?
Well, I mean, first-party data is your own data. And this was the other thing I was going to say. When I started down this path and then I stopped. And so the other thing that dealers are consistently not doing well is they're not activating on their own CRM data in Meta and in Google. Right. So Google wants you, they call it customer match, they call it audience in Meta, but to get that data out of your CRM and then into those platforms, even if you're not optimizing to it, at least gives the platform a signal to say, hey, this is what our buyers have looked like in the past. Let's go find more of those people. So I think that's super powerful. The other audience signal that is super powerful, and there's a bunch of ways to skin this cat in Google audiences, is what did people search before, or what was some of the adjacent. You can build segments based on search behavior, and then you can say, okay, let's see if people are searching for that, for my competitor's name, for my competitor dealership name down the road, and let's use that as part of an audience strategy.
Well, Mathew Growden, consultant, the change optimist. We appreciate you joining, sharing your perspectives. Last question is, where is Nine Inch Nails performing next? Where's
Jesus, I don't know. I mean, they're all over the U.S. It's funny. The updates come to me fast and furious on YouTube and Instagram because now people are posting, full HD versions of every show. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I think they end in LA. I think their last show is in LA.
It is fun to see as some of these bands that I'm 50, I grew up on Nine Inch Nails, The Cure, Oingo Boingo, all these bands. It's fun to see they are so old now. They're just on their sunset tour, their last glory tour. And it's fun to go see them and watch them. So we'll have to connect on all that.
I didn't see it, but Oasis was in town here.
That's true.
Yeah.
In Chicago too, actually. They came through, they've done an entire tour in the Midwest as well. So anyway, thanks. We appreciate you being on the show. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
I actually heard about Oasis and I had to Google it because I don't know Oasis as well as some of these others, but music is definitely a passion and something fun to watch. So good show today, huh?
Great show. So yeah, always.
I am going to be super interested to see what happens to EVs October of 2025.
Yeah.
And what does the demand curve really look like without any support behind it?
Yeah.
I'm going to bet it doesn't fall off the cliff everybody's worried about because so little actually does. I think OEMs have pulled back production. They've modified behavior, and I think there's going to be some sort of a norm. And then hybrids are going to continue to climb in percent sales. So that'll be fun. That'll be fun to watch. So
I agree.
Julie, great show. Thanks for doing the show today. And to our audience, thank you for watching the Daily Dealer Live today, where we break down the biggest moves in the car business as they happen. Don't forget, we're here every Monday, Wednesday, and we'll be back again this Friday. So if this is your world, be sure to hit like, be sure to hit subscribe, be sure to turn on those notifications so you never, ever miss a beat. And to everybody out there, we'll see you next episode. See you Friday.
See you guys.